All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down how Georgia became the absolute turning point of the American Civil War. And it wasn't just about one single battle. Nope, this was a slow, methodical, and brutal squeeze that ultimately brought the Confederacy to its knees. So, you might be wondering, how exactly did the Union pull this off? Well, it all boiled down to this one single concept, the Anaconda Plan. Seriously, picture a giant snake wrapping itself around the South, and with every move, it just squeezes a little tighter, cutting off all its supplies, all its resources, all its air. That was the game plan. But, you'd think everyone would be on board, right? Not at all. In the beginning, the press, the public, they just mocked it. They called it weak, passive, way too slow. Everybody wanted this one big, glorious battle to end the war quickly, not this long, drawn-out, grinding strategy. Okay, so the first coil of the Anaconda starts to tighten around the coast. The idea was simple. Use the powerful Union Navy to blockade the entire Confederate coastline. Why? To stop the South from shipping out its main moneymaker, cotton, their white gold, in exchange for the guns and supplies they desperately needed to even fight the war. But here's the thing. That's a lot easier said than done. See, these incredibly daring sailors, they were called blockade runners, saw a chance to make a fortune. And they started zipping their fast ships right past the Union blockade, usually under the cover of darkness. And get this, the blockade wasn't just struggling, it was a total bust at first. An incredible 9 out of every 10 of those blockade runners made it through. The whole Anaconda Plan was starting to look more like a harmless little garter snake. But then, in 1862, everything changed. The Union Army shows up with these brand new experimental rifled cannons, and they just pulverize the brick walls of Fort Pulaski, the key fort guarding the entrance to Savannah. Once that fort fell, the Union Navy could finally plug the holes. The blockade started to really, truly bite. So, with the coast now sealed up tight, the Anaconda begins its slow, steady push inland. And what's the next target? Well, it's the iron veins of the Confederacy. It's railroads. If you can cut those, the South can't move troops, can't move food, can't move guns. The whole war effort just grinds to a halt. And this inland push leads to one of the most horrific battles of the entire war, the Battle of Chickamauga. We're talking about a brutal 3-day slugfest that ends up being a massive Confederate victory. For the Union, it was the worst defeat they suffered in the entire Western theater. But wait, here's where it gets really interesting. Even though they got crushed on the battlefield, the Union actually won strategically. By holding on to the nearby city of Chattanooga, they had captured the gateway to the heart of Georgia, the doorway to Atlanta. It's one of those classic lose the battle, win the war moments. And securing that gateway opened the door for this guy, General William T. Sherman. He's the man who is about to unleash the final, most devastating chapter of this whole strategy, and in doing so, he's going to change the very nature of warfare forever. And right here, this might be one of the biggest strategic blunders of the entire war. You see, the Confederate leadership couldn't agree on how to stop Sherman. General Johnston wanted to play it safe, fight defensively, and bleed Sherman's army dry. But Confederate President Jefferson Davis wanted action, so he replaced Johnston with the super-aggressive General John B. Hood. And Hood, well, he played right into Sherman's hand. Hood's aggressive attacks failed, disastrously, and it led directly to Sherman capturing Atlanta. This was a monumental victory that re-energized the North and pretty much guaranteed Abraham Lincoln's re-election. Then, Sherman did something truly audacious. He burned Atlanta's war-making facilities, cut his own army off from its supply lines, and just started marching towards the ocean, planning to live off the land. This was total war. Sherman's march to the sea was designed to be terrifying. His army carved a path of destruction 60 miles wide across the state of Georgia, burning farms, tearing up railroads, destroying anything that could help the Confederate war effort. The message was crystal clear. This was no longer a war just against armies. This was a war to break the will of the Southern people themselves. But the very success of this suffocating strategy had a horrific, unforeseen consequence. As the Union squeezed the Confederacy from all sides, the entire Southern system started to buckle and collapse. And nowhere was that collapse more horrific than at a place called Andersonville Prison. See, this prison was built in a hurry out in rural Georgia. It was just a big wooden stockade, really. And it was only ever designed to hold, at most, 10,000 Union prisoners of war. But as Sherman tore through Georgia and the Union blockade choked off the South,
The Confederacy had nowhere else to put its prisoners. The population at Andersonville just exploded. Soon, there were over 30,000 men crammed into a space built for a third of that number. It was a direct result of the Anaconda Plan working too well.
The conditions inside were frankly apocalyptic. The only water source, a small creek, became a disgusting open sewer. The same blockade that was starving the Confederacy of weapons was now starving these prisoners of food. Disease was everywhere. Vicious gangs of prisoners even started murdering their own comrades for a scrap of bread. In the end, out of 45,000 men who were held there, almost 13,000 died.
After the war, a horrified nation demanded justice, and the man in charge of the camp, Captain Henry Weirs, was put on trial. He was found guilty and hanged, the only Confederate official to be executed for war crimes.
And that leaves us with this haunting final question. Was Captain Wirtz a sadistic monster who enjoyed watching his prisoners suffer? Or was he just a scapegoat, a man trapped in the gears of a gigantic war machine that was designed to crush a nation? A machine that had become so brutal and so total that it ended up consuming everyone and everything in its path. It's a question we still wrestle with today.